husband made me push through my flu, so when he got pneumonia, I made him do the same. I was shaking under 3 blankets with a fever of 103 when my husband walked into the bedroom and announced that we had his boss's retirement dinner that night and I needed to start getting ready. I tried to protest that I could barely stand up without the room spinning, but he just sighed like I was being difficult and said, "Babe, my mom raised 4 kids and never missed a single day of work in her entire life, so I really need you to push through this for me." I spent that dinner white-knuckling the table, smiling at strangers, and dry heaving in the restaurant bathroom while he networked. That whole week was a nightmare I had to survive alone. He slept in the guest room because my coughing kept him awake and he needed to be sharp for work. He complained every night that there was no real dinner ready, so I dragged myself to the kitchen with a 102 fever to make him something because apparently a grown man couldn't figure out the microwave. When I finally went to the doctor, I had to drive myself because he had a meeting that couldn't be moved, and I came home with a diagnosis of severe influenza and strict orders to rest. He looked at the prescription bag and said, "So you'll be better by Thursday, right? Because my parents are coming to town." I spent 10 days feeling like death while he treated my illness like a scheduling problem. A few months later, he started coughing. At first, it was just a cold, but he let it linger and refused to see a doctor because he could handle it. And then one morning, he woke up with a fever and announced he had pneumonia and needed me to take care of him. I decided to give him exactly what he gave me. He wanted tea, and I said, "The kettle is in the kitchen." He wanted me to call his office, and I said, "Your phone is right there." He pulled the blankets up to his chin and said, "I'm freezing. I need help." And I shrugged and said, "Some people just have stronger immune systems." That first day, he looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't process why I wasn't rushing to his side. By the third day, my sister's birthday party came around, and I walked into the bedroom and said, "I really need you to push through this for me tonight." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Your mom raised 4 kids and never missed a day of work, remember?" I said sweetly. He went to that party, and he sat in the corner looking miserable while I laughed with my family and ignored every wounded look he sent my way. After we got home, he turned on me. "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" he said, "watching me suffer in front of your whole family." I didn't answer. "You know what I've realized?" he continued. "You're not capable of actually loving someone. I've spent years waiting for you to show up emotionally, and you just don't have it in you." I wanted to fight back, but nothing came out. I lay awake that night wondering if he was right. The next morning, his mother called me. "My son texted me that he's terribly sick and you're not lifting a finger," she snapped. "What kind of woman lets her husband suffer like that?" I felt my face get hot. I started to explain what he did when I was sick, but she cut me off and said, "Marriage isn't about keeping score. It's about being there for each other." I hung up with my hands shaking. His coughing got worse after that. He was wheezing and struggling to catch his breath, and he grabbed my arm and said, "I think something is really wrong with me." I handed him a thermometer and it read 99.1. Barely a fever at all, but he insisted it must be broken. "I need to go to urgent care," he said, and I replied, "If it's that serious, you should call an ambulance." He didn't call one. Instead, he posted on social media about being sick and alone, and suddenly I was getting messages from friends and people I barely knew asking why I wasn't taking care of my husband. I stopped answering my phone. A few nights later, he grabbed my wrist as I walked past the bed and looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "Do you even care if I die?" he whispered. I looked down at him and said, "I cared when I was dying, and you made me smile at your boss's wife for 3 hours, so I guess we'll find out." The next morning, he snapped. He threw the blankets off and stood up at full height, and suddenly he wasn't hunched or weak anymore. Suddenly his face was twisted with rage instead of pain. "You're unbelievable," he screamed. "I wasn't even that sick. I felt my whole body go still. I was faking most of it to see what you would do, to see if you would step up and be a wife, and you failed." He was pacing around the bedroom with his arms waving and his voice getting louder. "I told my mom, I told everyone, and they all saw exactly what kind of person you really are." He spun around to point at me for emphasis, and his bare foot connected with the solid wood corner of the bed frame at
Scan the QR code to enjoy the wonderful continuation for free. New users will also receive additional rewards.